This is the new Cupra Leon Estate. It's a 310 horsepower all-wheel drive performance estate that shows that the fun doesn't have to stop when you start a family or, I don't know, a dog walking business. Now, remarkably, it's actually not the only car of its type because it shares a lot in common with the VW Golf R estate. And there's also the Mercedes-AMG CLA 35 shooting brake, and they all offer very similar performance at around the same price. So why should you go for the Cupra? Well, today we're gonna find out. But before we get into the review, remember to hit the like button and subscribe for more awesome videos just like this one. There are two types of Cupra Leon Estate in this world, the 310 and the 245. Now, this is the 310 and it comes with the same turbocharged 2-litre 4-cylinder engine as you find in most mid-spec performance cars under the VW group. Now, in the 310, as the name suggests, it produced 310 horsepower, which is about 10 horsepower shy than what you get in a Golf R, but it's still all-wheel drive. Comes with a 7-speed DSG and goes from 0 to 62 in 4.9 seconds, which is exactly the same time as the Mercedes-AMG CLA 35 shooting brake. That one. Now, the 245 is a plug-in hybrid. It's based around a 1.4 litre petrol engine that's hooked up to an electric motor, and when the two work in conjunction, you get, you guessed it, 245 horsepower. Now, the benefit of a plug-in hybrid is you can plug it in, charge it up, and drive it on electric power alone for up to 32 miles, which is very sensible, but I'd rather this one. Engine performance is a big part of the Cupra Leon Estate, but there's also been a lot of work done underneath the skin to make it a proper performance car in the corners. For instance, you get adaptive dampers as standard, so you can change the stiffness of the ride by going through different driver modes in the cockpit. And you also get beefier brakes with the Cupra logo on. Now, it shares a lot in common with the Golf R. However, you don't get the fancy drift mode that's an optional extra on the VW, which is a bit of a shame. However, you do get an electronic locking differential. Now, the last thing I wanted to point out was the rear wing and diffuser. Now, they actually work together to reduce drag by 8%, which is about that much. So how much does the Cupra Leon Estate cost? Well, the 310 that you see here comes in at around £39,000, whereas the PHEV starts at around 36. Now that means it's just about on par with the Golf R. However, it's worth bearing in mind that the trim levels on the Cupra come pretty much fully loaded in terms of tech at least, whereas the Golf, while we've not had the price list confirmed for the estate version, typically needs a few options to be ticked to get the right car. Of course, we've got plenty of deals on new and used Cupra Leons over at yesauto.co.uk, so you don't have to pay full price if you don't want to. This car is the base spec VZ2 and we get these 19-inch alloy wheels. But if you go for the VZ3, you still get 19-inch wheels. They just come in a slightly different design. Now, other slight changes include the Cupra name spelled out across the boot lid, and you also get a quad exhaust system. Now, the paint option that we have here is called Urban Silver, and it's actually a £540 option. But if you really want to set yourself apart from a regular Leon, then you can go for matte paint. Now, it comes to around £1,300, so it's not cheap, but it's really going to stand out on the road. The overall layout of the Cupra Leon Estate is, as you might expect, pretty much exactly the same as the regular Leon Estate, but there are lots of little touches that set this apart and make it feel overall like just a more special car. So in this VZ2 car, you get part leather seats, but in the VZ3, you get leather throughout the cabin. There are copper highlights around the vents and also on the steering wheel, as well as a copper badge on the floor mats. Meanwhile, the Cupra name is plastered on the door sill and is illuminated. And speaking of lighting, you actually have ambient lighting throughout the cabin that can be customized to your liking. Now, that's all controlled through this large touchscreen in the center of the dash. Now, layout-wise, it's exactly the same as the regular Leon Estate. However, it's a little bit fiddly, and frustratingly, it comes with the Golf's slider controls beneath it for the air conditioning and volume, which I'm afraid are a little bit rubbish. Now, of course, you can bypass most of that by using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which is completely wireless in this car. On a slightly lighter note, you have a full digital driver's display with copper highlights to make it look like a proper Cupra. And the great thing is that you can cycle through loads of different views, prioritizing either rev counter or the sat nav thanks to physical buttons on the steering wheel. And last but not least, you do have wireless charging in the VZ3. However, on this VZ2, you have to plug it in using one of the two USB-C charging ports. And if you want to see how this compares to the regular Seat Leon Estate and also get a feel of what boot space is like and also rear space, go click the link in the top right-hand corner for my full review. The Cupra Leon Estate has a really difficult job to do, because not only does it have to be a great performance car, but you've got to be able to live with it as well, because after all, it's a family estate. And for the most part, it does all of the above very well. So the first thing I'm going to do is check out the performance. I'm going to hit the Cupra button on the steering wheel, and the first thing you'll notice when you're in its sportiest setting is that you get an augmented engine sound. And I find Cupras aren't always the most accurate, because we've got a 4-cylinder engine in this car, but it sounds like it's got 5. That's being very nerdy, and most people won't care, but I am a colossal nerd and I notice these kind of things. Anyway, getting back to the point, this thing really does feel like a very fast car. And a lot of that is down to just this really great combination of that VW Group 2-litre engine, the all-wheel drive system, and also the snappy 7-speed DSG gearbox. And so while it only has 310 horsepower, it feels like it has so much more. You'll never be wanting for power in something like this, because it's just ludicrously fast. 0 to 62, 4.9 seconds. There's not many things that will really come close to this car, and it's something that can cost under £40,000. The steering's pretty nice as well. Admittedly, it's not the most engaging system out there. I've not got lots of feedback, and I don't feel like I can feel the road surface, but it's got a decent amount of weight to it, so you have an idea of just kind of where the weight transfer of the car is. And it's very, very sharp. Something that Cupra and Audi and VW are really good at doing is making steering systems that feel razor sharp. It's not all perfect though, because the ride can feel a little bit jittery at times. There is a firmness to it, and even in the most comfortable setting, it never really slackens off and becomes, let's say, a motorway cruiser. There's still a harshness about it that I just wish wasn't there. There does seem to be a bit of road noise as well. Perhaps it's through those 19-inch wheels, but again, I'm in the quietest, most comfortable setting, and there's just quite a bit of road noise that comes into the cabin. Not much wind, but it mainly seems to be coming from the tarmac and the wheels. Yeah, that is really very fast. Don't doubt that 4.9 second to 60 time at all. If anything, it might be even a little bit faster than that. So time to talk about the livable aspect of the Cupra. I've got some great driving tech in here. I've got it at 70 at the moment. I just whacked set, and that activates the adaptive cruise control. So again, I'm driving along here at 70. If the car in front of me starts to slow down, I'll slow down as well. But you also get travel assist as standard. So not only does that use the adaptive cruise control and lane keep assistance, but what it's actually doing is it's keeping me in the middle of my lane. So think of it as a bit like a kind of VW Group version of Tesla's autopilot. So how does it compare to something like the CLA 35 Sport Brake? Well, I don't think it feels quite as luxurious as that, but it's also a cheaper car, and we have so much kit as standard, which is kind of what gives it an advantage over something like the Golf R Estate. And while the Golf R can be spec'd with drift mode, again it's an optional extra available on the performance pack, I don't think you ever really need it, because how often are you going to be drifting a Cupra Leon Estate? I mean, I'd love it if that was something that you could regularly do, but realistically speaking, most people aren't going to need a drift mode or are really going to have the means to be able to use one. So while I think the Mercedes is a slightly more desirable car, the Leon feels better value. It's a great, practical and seriously fast performance estate car. So the Cupra Leon Estate might not look like much on the outside, but it's a hell of a lot of fun to drive and will provide plenty of entertainment for your family and pets on a B road. And crucially, it undercuts both the Volkswagen Golf R and also the Mercedes-AMG CLA 35 shooting brake, making the Cupra a bit of a bargain. And if you're after a bit of a bargain, remember you can find loads of deals over at yesauto.co.uk.